Blood of My Blood continues to honor Outlander's legacy with one banger episode after another. In episode 4, we witness Julia and Ellen coming together for the first time ever, oblivious to the fact that one day their children will mark the most epic love story of all time. And this is only the beginning of their partnership, as episode 5 will witness them forming a very strong friendship. So, let's talk about it. But first, we need to revisit episode 4 to get the context better here. The episode opened with Julia spilling her morning milk, immediately worrying that she had angered the fairy folk. Mistress Porter advised caution, while Julia decided to leave an offering at the old milking stone, hoping it would appease the fairies before Lord Lovett returned to Castle Leathers after a month in Edinburgh. Julia reflected on the origins of fairies and admitted that she still did not understand how or why she had traveled to this time, or if she would ever get back to Henry. Honestly, I don't know about you guys, but to me, Julia's story is the most interesting and the tragic one in the entire series. So, whenever I see her on screen, I cannot stop tearing up. And episode 4 was rich with flashbacks as well, which contributed to the emotional atmosphere immensely. For instance, a flashback showed Julia in her apartment during her pregnancy, asking Henry if he would consider the name Peter if they had a boy. Henry, excited about possibly reclaiming his old solicitor position, reassured Julia that he only wanted both her and their child to be safe and healthy. He was certain the baby was a boy, but Julia hoped to make Peter proud by going to college. In a tender moment, she placed Henry's hand on her stomach, feeling their baby's kick, and they shared a quiet, loving exchange. Of course, knowing that baby will be Claire makes everything even more emotional and interesting. And yes, I cannot wait for her to be born already. Meanwhile, Julia tried to protect herself from Lord Lovett by rubbing poison sumac on her neck and arms to create a rash. When she asked to visit an apothecary for a cure, Lord Lovett quickly agreed, and Brian volunteered to escort her. At Castle Leoch, Colum informed Ellen that Malcolm Grant expected her to attend Beltane near Inverness as his betrothed. Ellen refused, warning that once she married a Grant, her allegiance would shift, but Colum insisted. He reminded her that her family's survival depended on the marriage, especially after their father mismanaged the clan's funds, and hinted at the violent fate of those who had broken a promise to the Grants. I mean, not gonna lie, I kind of get where Colum is coming from. Like, what else he can do in this situation? It is one of the smartest decisions to secure Grant's alliance through marriage. But of course, my heart is always with Ellen, and the last thing I would want would be to see her be happy. Thankfully, Brian is still thinking about her, and her only. On the journey to Inverness, Brian and Julia bonded over her rash, her intelligence, and his own insecurities about being a bastard with little to offer. Julia admitted she was pregnant, and Brian, unaware, promised to protect her. He assured her that she could ask for help from Mrs. Fitzgibbons, Ellen's maid, if needed. They reached Castle Leoch under the cover of night, where Julia met Mrs. Fitz and learned that Ellen was heartsick and essentially a prisoner of circumstance. And this is the part that got me excited the most. Recognizing the pain of being separated from true love, Julia convinced Ellen to follow her heart. Together, they snuck out and reunited Ellen with Brian. They held hands, declared their love, and Ellen promised to find a way out of marrying Malcolm, hoping to see Brian at Beltane. I mean, a part of me is still confused how come they felt so hard for each other after just a brief meeting. But I guess the heart wants what it wants. And not gonna lie, they look freaking amazing together. Thus, I'm excited to see them together at Beltane in next week's episode, trying to escape their doomed fate with the power of love. Back at Castle Leathers, Lord Lovett was pleased that Julia's rash had cleared. He called her his English rose, and she asked him to be gentle, revealing she was carrying his child. Davina congratulated them, and Lovett hoped it would be another son. Meanwhile, Henry continued his search for Julia, frustrated by a case of mistaken identity at a brothel, where a woman named Seema stood in for Julia. Henry did not seek intimacy, he just wanted to find his wife and be near her. I have to admit, for a second I got scared that he will fall for the temptation. And yet, it was wrong of me to think less of Henry. This man is truly in love with Julia, and nothing makes me happier than to think that next week, they will see each other for the first time. By the way, Henry's duties for Clan Grant complicated matters further. Isaac Grant ordered him to increase tenant rents and oversaw the process with Archbug. When tenants resisted, Henry initially resorted to physical force, recalling his harsh wartime training, but he soon devised a more compassionate solution, a lottery system where tenants could pay what they could, and the winner would receive a year of free rent. Isaac was skeptical but allowed it, warning Henry not to try it again, which was stupid of him because what Henry did was extremely smart. But he was ahead of his time, I guess. Triggered by this incident, Henry's PTSD surfaced in vivid flashbacks. Julia comforted him during nightmares, singing softly and giving him a St. Anthony necklace to protect him. She reminded him that she had fallen in love with the man he was now, not the man he had been before the war, and encouraged him to think of her and their baby as his guiding light. In a touching moment, Henry decided that if the baby was a girl, they would name her Claire, meaning clear and bright. I mean, if you did not tear up in this scene, I don't know what would make you cry as an Outlander fan. It was that impactful only. In the meantime, Brian and Julia formed a tentative alliance. Julia would help Brian handle the Malcolm situation at Beltane if he, in turn, helped her locate Henry, who had been separated from her near Inverness. Julia sneaked into Castle Leoch through the servants' entrance, delivering Brian's message to Ellen. The women strategized to escape and meet their lovers while keeping an eye on potential threats from Dougal and Colum. Next week, we will reach a peak point in the series as we will witness Ellen's wedding in Beltane, which will turn into a complete disaster. Brian will be there to steal her in the sneakiest way possible, which of course won't work. Instead, they will create a mass, causing an instant conflict among the families. By the way, Brian will bring Julia with him as well, since he will continue using her as a messenger, or shall I say a bridge, between him and Ellen. And of course, Henry will also be there, as a guest to the wedding. And you already know what this means. It means that Julia and Henry will finally have an eye contact. But no, I'm afraid this won't be the episode for their ultimate reunion. Instead, when he attempts to get her, Henry will face with the news that Julia is now a mistress to Brian's father, meaning that it won't be that easy to get her back. That being said, Julia and Ellen will realize that the way to save each other is to cooperate, and thus they will work on finding a common spot to meet regularly and exchange information. But let me know what you expect to see in the upcoming episode of Blood of My Blood. For more weekly updates on Blood of My Blood, make sure to like and follow. Meanwhile, the video on the screen might also interest you.